So I will attest for it that the meeting has been properly notified.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Langrick. Just a couple of housekeeping, or one housekeeping item beyond the one I already addressed. For committee members, when committee members have the floor from me, don't feel like you need to check it back in with me, once you have it. If you want to ask questions of Mr. Langrick and then, any of the other staff, just feel free to go ahead and carry on until you're done. So no need to go through that extra hoop jumping of checking in with me once you have the floor. Let's see, agenda approval. We have an 11-point agenda. Actually, I should back up a little bit. Let's go ahead and check to see who all is here. So I'm just going to read off who I see on the screen for committee members. So there is Don Seep is here. Dave Turk is here. Linda Gentis and Marty Brewer are both here. And then myself. So we have 5 out of 7 members present. Am I missing Mark Cooey anywhere?
Yeah, I'm on the phone.
Oh, you're on the phone. Okay, great. So we've got Supervisor Cooey here as well. Supervisor Luck let me know she wouldn't be able to attend today. So we have 6 out of 7 members, so we do have a quorum. So with that, we have an 11-point agenda, and I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Seep and a second by Supervisor Cooey. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. We have an agenda. I need to leave at 2 o'clock today, so I am going to just reorder one item on the agenda. I'm going to skip over agenda item number 4 since I'm guessing that might go a little longer, and if it does, I'll need to hand over the chair to Supervisor Cooey. So agenda item number 5, extend funding to child support clerical assistant 2 position through January 8th. Mr. Langrick.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to continue funding of the child support clerical assistant position until January 8th, 2020 to facilitate a 2020 retirement for the current employee and to allow for budget adjustments in 2021 to reflect this change. Through the 2021 budget process, the child support clerical assistant 2 position was identified to be reduced entering into the 2021 budget year, effective January 1st, 2021. The current employee has served Richland County since 1988 and was planning on a 2020 retirement. It was requested that the position be funded until January 8th, 2021 to allow for a 2021 retirement, which may have beneficial impacts to the employee's retirement apportionment through the Wisconsin retirement system. It is recommended the clerical assistant 2 position be classified as unfunded in 2021, but keep authorized to help with a dedicated position in consideration for the D4 class load during a projected department configuration. So essentially, there is additional actions in reconfiguring some of the positions in child support that's anticipated. So they added a bit of having the position still kind of considered as authorized but unfunded to help with the dedicated position for the D4 reimbursements is something that is proposed today until we can see what it looks like with the reconfiguration and how that impacts our reimbursements. And then below that, you'll see the financial impacts. This includes, though, for the payouts for retirements. And then with this, 66% is reimbursed by the state. Mr. Chair.
Okay, Ms. Scott, can you go ahead and mute everybody, and then I'll work on unmuting myself if I get muted as well, since we've got quite a bit of background. So everyone should be muted except for me at this point. So if committee members have any questions or comments, you'll just need to unmute yourself and speak up. Okay, I'll just give folks a couple more seconds. So if there's no questions or comments, then I'd entertain a motion to continue the funding for this position until January 8th.
I'd make that motion. This is Dave.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Turk,
I'll second. Smart.
second by Supervisor Cooey. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone else want to say aye?
Unmute yourself first.
A few
They're all
seconds.
muted.
Yep. We'll give them a chance to unmute themselves. This is good practice for later in the meeting.
Aye, Linda.
Aye. Marty? Aye. Okay, I think we have enough ayes to say that motion carried. Okay, so agenda item, yeah, just remember to keep remuting yourself after these things, just so we don't have a lot of background. Agenda item number 6, utilizing borrowed capital funds for ambulance garage engineering. Mr. Langreich.
Mr. Chair, today looking for a motion to approve a resolution for the county board accepting the proposal for architecture and engineering services provided by Jewell and Associates utilizing borrowed capital improvement funds. The background on this item, the Joint Ambulance Committee, JAC, solicited requests for proposals to architecture and engineering firms for the new emergency services facility. An ad was run for 2 weeks. It was advertised in the Builder Exchange of Wisconsin for free and sent RFPs to 6 firms. 4 of the 6 firms responded: Jewell and Associates, Delta 3, Dimensional 4, and I'm going to say this wrong, Aero Ebro Architects. All of the proposal were reviewed by the subcommittee of the JAC and narrowed it down to 2 firms, Jewell and Associates and Delta 3. Both firms met the requirements of the RFP, are local, and had lower bid amounts. The JAC met on 10/29/2020, and Jewell and Associates was chosen. Their proposal to provide an A&E services came in at $59,750, which was the lowest qualifying proposal. Estimated of the project is $59,750. Proposals that were submitted to your committee folder and also available online included the 2 from Jewell and Associate and Delta 3. And I do have Director Gudgeon, I believe, is also on to further elaborate on this subject. Darren, do we have you on?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. So what we're bringing to you this afternoon for your consideration is the first step towards the construction of a new emergency services facility, which would include office space for emergency management, our hazardous materials program, and probably the biggest section of the building or project is to house our ambulances and to run the emergency medical services department out of. As the Administrator Langford had both elaborated on, we did submit for RFPs from around the state for architect and engineer services. We had 4 firms respond back. They were reviewed, and the 2 that went from the subcommittee on to the Joint Ambulance Committee were Jewell and Associates, based out of Spring Green, and Delta 3, which is based out of Platteville. There should be some supporting document that was sent to you as well. From Delta 3, it would be correspondence between the committee chair, Brian McGraw, and one of the lead associates at Delta 3, just ensuring that both RFPs were an apples-to-apples comparison. There was much discussion at the Joint Ambulance Committee. However, at the end, it was unanimously support was for Jewell and Associates. One, they met all the requirements of the RFP. Two, they demonstrated they've had experience with these types of facilities. They are local, and they were the lowest bid. So we are now bringing this forward to this body for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Gudgeon. So I'm just going to make a couple of comments here just to start us off. So I voted no last time, or I did not vote no last time on a bill related to this because the services had already been performed. But I do plan to vote no on this today. There's a couple issues or concerns I have about this. One is that we have a courthouse that is in need of quite a few repairs, including in the basement. I'm aware of a couple problems we have down there. One related to mold and another related to the jail above the ambulance vehicles. And my big concern about going forward with investing the 600 grand in a new building is that we will still be stuck with all of the problems that we have in the old building in the courthouse. And I'm assuming we're going to have to keep borrowing more money to maintain the courthouse. And knowing how much debt we have taken out in say the past 5 to 7 years, I would rather invest the $600,000 in fixing up the existing facility. Now, I know that's not going to make a lot of people happy that I've got that opinion, but that's where I'm at with this. So that's why I'm planning on voting no against this. So other committee members, maybe we can just go around each person at a time, because I'm assuming, or I'll just check in to see if each person wants to speak. Mr. Supervisor Turk, do you have any comments or questions?
While I respect your concerns, I'm still in favor of doing this. I think getting the ambulance out into their own facility makes whatever future solutions to our current issues with the courthouse a little bit easier. That's one party's considerations we can get out of the equation. Instead of trying to make a facility that serves diverse interests of multiple parties, we can narrow down the list of people that we're responsible for, and maybe that will help us have a more focused solution.
Okay, thanks, Supervisor Turk. Supervisor Gentis, do you have anything on this item?
Well, I think some of the things that the courthouse can wait. It seems like the emergency department really needs our help. Seems like it's a big mess. So I'm not quite sure why you think the courthouse should be above the other.
Okay, Supervisor Brewer. Oh, you're still muted. You'll have to unmute yourself. There you go. Yep, you're good now.
Okay, I agree, Sean. The courthouse needs a lot of things, but we've got this opportunity here before us, and we do have a donor has come to build the shell of the building. The $600,000 that we have earmarked right now for construction, we put in basically finishing the inside of the building, and now this engineering study that has to be done. I think some assumptions were made erroneously that the donor who stepped forward late this summer had already done this engineering work, and such is not the case. And even to proceed beyond where we are now, this has to be done. I think it's a rare opportunity that we have in stepping forward to donate the shell of the building, and then we can finish it up. We can get the ambulance, emergency services out of the basement of the courthouse. Also, my vision building is that it will go beyond the ambulance. Actually, I see the part of this location in time. The chosen will afford that luxury to expand and have that facility. As I'm all in favor of this.
Okay, Supervisor Cooey.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this, with the current conditions that they're in, and trying to maintain or get help to make the service be able to provide more service to the county. I think this is what's needed to make sure that happens. It's kind of difficult to get people to come to work full time for the ambulance when they're sleeping in a cubby hole and don't have a nice place to relax in between and or shower, do their laundry, whatever it may be. So I'm in support.
Okay, and then Supervisor Seep.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I can't say much, anything more eloquent than what has already been said by the affirmative. I hate to disagree with the chair, but you may be assured that I'm not being disagreeable. It is a cumbersome environment there, and where the present ambulance service is housed. And I think this is a very, very worthwhile and certainly long overdue improvement to the county's services. So I'm fully in favor of this, and so I support it, and that's all I can say because everyone else has been more cogent in their presentations.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution for this proposal for engineering services by Jewel and Associates.
I'll make the motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so we got a motion by Supervisor Cooey, and Supervisor Brewer will make yours a second, since I heard you second. Any further discussion? Mr. Langrick, can you please call out each person and let's just get this on the record for the ayes and the noes on this vote, please?
Okay. Murphy Lopez,
No.
Brewer,
Yeah.
Thank you. Gentis,
Yes.
Seep,
Yes.
Turk,
Aye.
Cooey.
Yes.
Luck is absent, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so that motion carries with 5 votes in favor. So agenda item number, thank you, Mr. Gudgeon. Agenda item number 7, utilizing borrowed capital funds for large courtroom AV improvements. Mr. Langreich.
Mr. Chair, today looking for a motion to authorize utilization of fund number 75 for the installation of the AV and teleconferencing improvements to the large courtroom. This project is regarding AV improvements to the large courtroom. The project will include upgrade video conferencing capabilities and adding a DAR systems, digital audio recorder. Money was designated through the capital borrowing fund number 75 for this project. At the property committee, Director Scott presented bids from vendors interested in handling the AV improvements to the large courtroom. 4 vendors solicited bids: Fairings, Marco, SKC, and BSI. An analysis of the different bids, including price and details of the complete solution, were considered. Recommendation to award bid to Marco in the total of $84,659.87 was what was brought forward. There was discussion. Motion by Williamson, seconded by Cosgrove, to recommend awarding the project to Marco in that amount. All A's, motion carried. The total impact of the borrowed funds was, we have $72,000 intended for that. So there will be an additional potential $12,659.87 that it's proposed to either utilize, if we can have the project completed this year, potentially to take from courthouse maintenance fund number 43, but in the timetable where it bleeds over into the next year, then we're utilizing designated amounts from the short-term borrowed short-term capital funding that we discussed at our last meeting. And I believe I have Director Scott on here for more detailed questions. Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
so committee members, let's start with Supervisor Seep. In case you have anything, I think you're still not muted. I'm looking for you right now.
All right, thank you. Am I
Yeah.
muted?
Nope, you're not. So once you get done, please mute yourself because
All right,
we're getting lots of feedback from yours. So.
Oh, well, I'm sorry about that. I hope you don't see the fact that I forgot to shave this morning.
No, we can't see you. We can just hear lots of little mouse movements.
Yeah, I offer a motion in favor of this. The arguments are self-evident.
Okay, a motion by Supervisor Seep,
This is Dave Turk. I'll second.
a second by Supervisor Turk. Any discussion from other committee members? Okay, all those in favor of the motion then, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm going to unmute now.
No.
Thanks, Don. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 8, CDBG close. Mr. Langret.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to return CDBG revolving loan program funds with the option to buy out the existing DeYoung loan. The Community Development Block Grant Program is a federal formula allocated grant program administered by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. Funding for the CDBG Small Cities program is provided through the state of Wisconsin by HUD. The program was created by Congress, passed the Housing and Community Development Act, Title I, 1974, and is governed by the rules set forth in the Housing Community Development Act, HCDA, of 1974 as amended, and is a Code of Federal Regulations 24 CFR Part 570. Under the guidance of HUD, the state of Wisconsin issued instructions for closing the revolving loan program and allowing local governments to utilize funds in approved non-competitive grant initiatives. The final date for closure is January 31st, 2021. At this time, Richland County must have reports and payments returned to the state of Wisconsin. Richland County is faced with options of returning cash in hand and buying out the existing loan, or number 2, returning cash in hand and deferring the existing loan. And kind of the breakdown on the decision looks a little bit like this. Essentially, we have the 2 options of we can turn back the cash in hand as well as buying out the existing loan. The county then manages and collects the existing loan. All the return payments from the DeYoung payments, the principals and interest, are returned defederalized, meaning that we can use them for any projects of government use that we have, and they return to us at a 4% interest. That amortized loan is estimated at $45,611.60 when we hit January. The entire $1.2 million then is potentially available for the grant projects as being handled and planned right now through economic development. There's the project here in Richland Center involving the theater, and then the project of the street improvements down on Lone Rock, I believe, are the 2 projects that we're queuing on. In turning back in all the funds, the pros to that approach was we will have we'll have a return of 4% on the $45,000 when it comes in. There's less administrative maintenance, and we have more accessibility to have that money granted back to us for the grant projects. The cons to it is that we would need to allocate from the general fund to be able to turn back in the full 1.2. So we'd have to allocate from general fund this year $45,611.60 approximately. The other option is to defer. We pay back our revolving loan cash in hand, which is essentially the $1.2 million without that $45,000. The county still manages and collects the existing loan, but then all return payments from DeYoung, the principals and interests, are collected by the county and then reimbursed back to the state with county eligibility for a small administration fee. So then essentially the money that we would have potentially available for the grant is the 1.2 minus this amount. The pros to this is we don't have to allocate from our general fund this year. Essentially, we don't have to dip further into our undesignated funds or contingent funds to do this. And then the cons, though, is the administrative tasks of we would have to release a check to the state each and every month until we get all the monies recouped back, and we would have this should be same number as here, $45,611 less for the projects. So the recommendation today is to return the full CDBG amount and utilize undesignated general funds to pay it full back, knowing that we'll collect over the next years then the $45,000 plus 4% interest, which will come back defederalized to apply to any types of government projects. Mr. Chair.
So, Mr. Langreich, I'm understanding, looking at under the financial review part of this, that you're suggesting that we use the contingency fund, not the general fund, correct?
I don't know if what our contingency fund is off, so I guess I visualize utilizing undesignated general fund for it.
Well, you're not suggesting using the contingency fund then for this?
No, undesignated general fund.
Okay, so contingency fund should say undesignated general fund. Okay. The other item on the second page under pros of option 2 deferral, I would assume that another pro that's not listed here would be that we don't carry the risk in case is it De Young, I think, is the ones who borrowed. We don't carry the risk of say they decide they go out of business or they stop paying their loan. We don't carry that risk under option 2 deferral. The state government carries that risk.
Correct. That should be on there. That is a correct assessment.
Okay. So yeah, I'm pretty fiscally conservative here when it comes to this stuff. And I know that there are some advantages to buying out the loan option 1, but I'm not as in favor of dipping into our general fund and carrying that risk. I love to see that cash balance history, how much it's going up right now. I was looking at that just before the meeting, and I just hate to do things that are going to change that. So, okay, committee members, your thoughts or questions? Supervisor Brewer, you just have to unmute yourself. You were unmuted and then you muted yourself. So there you go. You're good.
Yes, I'm muted. I don't understand this, but anyway, I'm just asking, I want to ask Clint why he's recommending the option that he's recommending.
We would have $45,000 that we would be taking out of our undesignated general fund, but essentially the payment history on this with the current folks with De Young's has been they haven't missed a payment and would essentially be getting 4% back on an investment that comes back to us defederalized. So it takes money out of our current undesignated, but based on the payment history, there's no indication that they're going to default on it. So we would be getting a 4% return.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
You finished, Mr. Langreich, with your answer?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Supervisor Seat. Supervisor Seat, you just need to unmute yourself. There you go. Now you're good.
All right. The $45,000 loan, your option would allow the county to have access to the full 1.2 million for other projects. Is that right? And,
that is correct.
And the other option would give the county access to the 1.2 million less the 45,000. Is that right?
That is correct for the granted projects that are being planned through economic development.
Okay. And do our proposed projects add up to the possible use of the 1,200,000?
To be determined yet. I don't think we have them
To
fully
be
costed
determined.
out through an engineer.
Okay,
So
but
the $45,000 might at that point not be a moot issue in regards to getting it granted back, because we don't have those numbers back at the moment.
so there is no risk of default to the county with the option you're proposing, as Mr. Chair indicated. Is that right?
There is a possibility in the option that I'm proposing today. We would still assume the risk on that existing loan.
Okay, but that is the one you're proposing.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, other committee members? Okay, if there's no other discussion, I'd entertain a motion. But whoever does the motion, please state which option you're choosing, 1 or 2, as it's stated in page 2, just so we're really clear, because it's not written out on the cover sheet like that.
The proposal is for case 2, correct?
Let's see, Mr. Langrick's proposal is for option number 1, buyout.
That's
All right.
correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
What's the term on that loan? How many more years do they have to pay it?
I believe right now it's written out for an existing 3 with a balloon at the end. And I think we continue it out at that rate. I would have to ask Victor on how many more existing years it would have until it's all paid off in full.
This is Dave. I'll make the
Chair.
motion with the buyout option.
Okay, so we've got a motion by Supervisor Turk.
I will
I'll
second.
second it.
Okay, a second by Supervisor Seep. So this would be option number 1, buyout. And while it's not stated in the motion, we also should probably mention that this would come from undesignated general fund.
Agreed.
Okay. That should be clear in our minutes if minutes are getting taken for this meeting. So, okay, any further discussion? Okay, let's do a roll call on this one too, because I'm going to vote no, and so that way it gets written down.
Okay, are you ready, Mr. Chair?
Yep, I am.
Murphy Lopez,
No.
Brewer,
Yes.
Brewer, Gentis,
Yes.
Seep,
Yes.
Turk,
Yes.
Cooey,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we've got 5 in favor, so that motion passes. Let's see here, agenda. So thank you, Mr. Langreck, for walking us through that. Agenda item number 9, revenue reports. Let's see here. The best way, looks like we have 3 different documents that are online and on our iPads, and I think I'll hand this over to Treasurer Keller. If you can get yourself unmuted by using *6, although actually I see you're not on the phone. You're actually on WebEx here. So if you can figure out how to unmute yourself, that would be great.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can. Yeah, go ahead. If you don't mind walking us through the documents or giving any highlights that you wish to highlight.
Okay. These are basically just monthly updates. Surprisingly, the sales tax stayed at over 100,000, so that was good news. Revenue stayed up there as well, so that was good news. The only bad news really is the interest that is going down, which I was hoping it would at least stay a little steady at the 0.13, which is nothing, but then it went down more, and I guess I'm assuming it'll even go further down. So are there any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to note that our cash balance history for August of 2020 is 3.1 million higher than our cash balance back in October of 2019. So it seems like another really good sign. It keeps the trend going, you know, that I'm assuming is going to help with our general fund going up for the 2020 calendar year compared to 2019. So thanks for sharing the good news.
Yep, we've been keeping it up, and we'll get our $1 million probably in another week for our shared revenues. So that'll help November's balance as well.
Okay, any committee members with questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Treasurer Keller, for giving us an overview and providing all those. Okay, so agenda item number 4, amendments. Actually, let's go ahead and do agenda item number 10 because I might need to drop off in case this next one goes long. Agenda item number 10 is future agenda items proposal. So we'll just go around the room here. Let's see, Supervisor Cooey, do you have anything for future meetings?
No, nothing at this time, Sean.
Okay, thanks. Let's see, Supervisor Seep. Just have to unmute yourself so we can hear you. There you go.
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks. Let's see, Supervisor Gentis.
I guess I should have been thinking about this. I don't either. When is our next meeting?
Well, that will be the December 1st if we keep with our regular scheduled meetings.
Okay, I was wondering what we were going to do. At 1 o'clock in either WebEx or in person, right?
Well, we'll handle that at adjournment, but yes, probably WebEx. I mean, this seems to be going pretty well, and with more and more COVID cases, it's probably wise unless anyone's upset about doing these online. So
it's okay with me. Okay.
Okay, but future agenda, if you have any future agenda items, just get in touch with me in the meantime.
Yeah, I'll think about it.
Okay, Supervisor Brewer. There you go.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Supervisor Turk.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. All right. So now thanks everyone. Now we can go to agenda item number 4, amendment to the COVID-19 plan regarding exempt employees. Mr. Langright.
Mr. Chair, recommendation brought forward today is motion to recommend amendments to the Richland County COVID-19 plan by allowing department heads to grant exempt COVID-19 leave to Family First Act exempt employees while isolated for having personally tested positive for COVID-19, with proposed amendments, policy language changes effective the beginning of the next pay period following adoption. The background on this is language here in regarding to where the Families First Act came from. Essentially, when creating the Richland County Families First Act policy, the following positions were identified as exempt, with the amendments that we made in October 2020, further defining the healthcare providers at Pine Valley. For the purposes of the policy of exemption from the PLSA, the paid leave, and the extended family medical leave, the county administrator, public health nurses, and all staff, Pine Valley Community Village healthcare providers, which included the director of nursing, a registered nurse manager, social services supervisor, social worker, registered nurse supervisor, registered nurse, licensed practical nurse, medication aide, unit clerk, certified nursing assistant, CBRF unit clerk, activity aide, personal care worker, resident assistant. These are all changed effective 11 September 2020. Law enforcement officers, jail personnel, emergency medical services personnel and all staff, dispatchers, highway patrolmen, equipment operators, and management information systems personnel, were again the positions we identified at the county as being exempt from these policies. We did have language incorporated into the Richland County COVID-19 plan, which states employees not utilizing PLSA or EFMLEA will be required to use their available leave balances for the duration of their illness or to provide care for a family member's illness, including available compensatory time, sick vacation, and floating holiday. Employees exceeding all paid benefit time available will be allowed to enter a negative balance on their sick leave accrual bank until they can safely return to work. Once they have returned, all future paid time off, including compensatory sick vacation, floating holiday, will be recouped at time earned to offset any remaining negative balance. Discussion has been had at Finance and Personnel and on the county board floor regarding the inequity of this policy as it relates to essential workers impacted by COVID-19. In efforts to recognize the inequity and the hardship imposed on our essential workers during this pandemic, a recommendation is made is made to allow department heads to grant what would be called exempted COVID-19 leave to Families First Act exempted employees, that list that we had read above, while isolated for having personally tested positive for COVID-19. It is felt by the county administrator this action would help further recognize the impacts of these employees and yet allow the county to maintain critical functions, understanding that this benefit still does not create equity with entitlements to the Family First Act. An alternative option would be to eliminate the identification of exempt employees and allow all county employees to access the entitlement to PLSA or EFMLA. This option is possible, but may jeopardize staffing needs and critical functions. Alternative options may also exist in exercising discretion to allow, again, the exempted COVID-19 leave for additional PLSA, EFMLA type criteria, which we'll reference below. Additional decision points that was considered during this is an effective date, essentially deciding when to make this benefit available, if it's going to be retroactive or in the future, as it may impact individual employees. And number two, the criteria. The county has the authority to identify qualifying criteria. The more opportunities allowed is the greatest benefit to the employee, but generates increased risk in staffing and performing essential functions. Below that, you'll see a kind of what the proposed language would look like. For the proposal put above, we would insert the language here. Employees are exempt from PLSA may be granted exempted COVID-19 leave for up to a total of 10 days in a 2-week period at 100% normal compensation while the employee is isolated for having personally tested positive for COVID-19. And then an effective date here is currently put in would be at the day after the next county boardroom or meeting. But again, these are all decision points that can be altered. Department heads will have authority to grant this leave and will verify a test of their employees' positive test when submitting to payroll. Departments will utilize applicable pay codes as established through the clerk's office when submitting exempt COVID-19 to the clerk's office. And then we would change the language then also to reflect that employees then that are not utilizing PLSA, EFMLA, or now this additional benefit of exempted COVID-19 leave will still have access to use their benefit time and to go into the negative on sick leave. The other option would be to go to the Families First Act policy and then eliminate the language for exclusions to the eligibility and entitlement to the two programs. So we would cut that out for the PLSA, and then we would also cut that out for the EFMLEA. Kind of looking at a decision matrix here, which is a little bit rough and nasty, but essentially what you're looking at here on the left, there's 6 different criterias for the PLSA, and that's kind of the up to 2 weeks payment of 80 hours. If the person currently, if you're eligible for the PLSA or the FMLA, you're compensated 100% for these 3 type of reasons, which are kind of personally impacted. If you're in care for other folks, then essentially then you're eligible for 2/3 payments. Again, and that's up to a total of 80 hours within a 2-week period. So the different admin challenges is if we deem our essential workers as non-exempt for the purposes of Families First Act, benefit entitlement may impact our department's ability to meet staffing levels to perform essential functions. This kind of bleeds over into the EFMLA as well, because the EFMLA is an extension then beyond the first 2 weeks of a 2/3 pay that can extend up to 12 weeks after the 10-day elimination period. And this is to employee is unable to work or telecommute for care of minor children if the children's school or child care has been closed or is unavailable due to public health emergency. In looking at the equity factor, eliminating exempt positions would be the most equitable type of approach. It would be even. It's already kind of an authorization by policy through department heads. Effective date again on here would be proposed for the date after the next county board meeting, but that could also be the first day of the next pay period or retroactive, again at the discretion of the county board through yourselves. And then the end date though for both of the current benefits is currently set for December 31st unless there is legislative extension. Below that then you'll see our current exempt leave that we have through our COVID-19, which essentially allows folks to go into the negative, and that stays in place. So in kind of looking at using the same type of utilization language to try to have it as equitable, you could say that you could grant, if you didn't want to open up and remove the exemption from all employees, essentially making them entitled to that, which reduces or it increases our risks then for being able to maintain nursing home operations, law enforcement's caring for the roads, those types of different functions. If we didn't want to just say we're not exempting folks and you wanted to entertain again more of an exempted leave, the proposed option is to test positive for COVID-19, which is the criteria that is currently recommended. Then the next 6 options are the same language that you'd see up in the PLSA language, which is essentially if you're subject to quarantine or isolation, you've been advised by local health care providers or public health to quarantine, experiencing symptoms, caring for family members, caring for children that aren't able to go to school, experiencing symptoms of COVID-19. And then that would also carry then to, you could take it as far as then if you're unable to work, to carry an existing type of a benefit at your choosing. It is recommended through payroll, through the county clerk's office, that in any type of option that we do, it is easier to track this and to administer it through using a new pay code and a new designated pay code, rather than doing a reimbursement to like an existed benefit like a sick or a compensatory time or something like that. So it's advisable that we essentially create a new pay code versus having to make benefit codes and then trying to reimburse those accounts for a double entry. So I don't know if I've made this more clear or more confusing, but this is kind of the spectrum of the different options that are potentially out there in the realm of equity. If you're looking for the most equitable, we just eliminate the language off of our Families First Act to say nobody's exempt anymore. But then we assume the risk then of having quite a few folks that are kind of critical to functions that are going to be entitled to these leaves without not very much managerial discretion to help control to make sure that we can perform functions. So with that being said, Mr. Chair, I would turn it back over to you. I know that I also have several department heads that are on today. It may be worthwhile too if it was if there was questions on how it would impact their departments, they would be available as well to field questions directly. Mr. Chair.
Okay, Ms. Scott, can you go ahead and get everyone muted again, and then I'll be ready to unmute myself. Got quite a few people who have been unmuted during the presentation. Okay, and so then I thought we'd just go around and get thoughts from each of the committee members first. So Supervisor Cooey, if you can hit *6 and start us off, if you wouldn't mind. And Supervisor Cooey, you're still muted, so just if you could try hitting *6 and let's see if that works. There you go.
Should be going now.
Yep.
I'm just, this whole thing to me, I have a hard time understanding why we did what we did. So what this explains to me, or how I take this is we basically told people that you're not going to get paid if you get COVID. But then everybody else in the county, that if they got COVID, then they got paid. Is that the long and short of it, or not?
Yes, there's folks that if we deem them to be kind of critical to a critical function, we've said that you are exempt. And if you are impacted by COVID-19, then you have the ability to take your benefited accrual times. For the folks that are not exempted and have access to these policies, they don't have to use their accrued benefit times. They get this additional PLSA or EFMLA payment to them at either 100% level or at a 2/3 level, and they're able to make themselves whole through benefit times. So essentially, yes, they're getting more of a benefit than the folks that are deemed as critical right now.
That's where I get confused. I don't understand the thought process there. We're telling these people that you are essential and we need you to work, but then if they get sick, we're not going to pay them. And then the person that we don't tell is essential or isn't essential, then we pay them. That makes no sense to me. That's where my whole confusion lies with this. So what we were trying to do is say, by telling you that you're essential, then you can't get paid, so it's going to force you to work. Is that the thought process?
The thought process is there is less incentive in using your own benefit time to potentially stay away for 12 weeks than, and kind of almost an entitlement too. With the folks that are currently entitled to these plans, we don't have a whole lot of control on being able to get them back, other than clearing medical and them coming back. But essentially, it may be a challenge, and I don't know if it is, because we haven't crossed the threshold yet to continue operations at the nursing home, continue operations in jailing and law enforcement, when folks essentially will be potentially entitled to up to 12 weeks at 2/3 pay without using any type of a benefited time, generates more of an incentive to be away. So it's certainly a pandemic, and it's an additional hardship that's generated on our essential employees. But we're certainly trying to balance and trying to retain and recruit employees for these jobs with continuing to provide the essential functions.
And Supervisor Cooey, so my understanding of the motion that's before us today that Mr. Langrek is recommending is that if one of these exempt employees or essential employees did test positive for COVID-19, that the county would be paying for up to 10 days worth of their time off. So that this would be a change over the policy we had adopted before, but it doesn't cover folks who say have a kid at home who gets an essential employee who has a kid at home who gets COVID or who gets exposed to somebody. This is kind of, as I see it, Mr. Langret's creating some sort of a compromise idea for us so that we can encourage those essential employees to stay on the job, so that we don't have to close down parts of the nursing home or highway department or sheriff's department or what have you.
Yeah, I understand the thought process. The thing that bothers me with it is we've had people, we've told them that they couldn't work and they were essential, so then they had to use their benefit time. So we tell them they're essential, we need them to work, and then we tell them they can't work, and then we don't pay them. We make them use their own time. That's where I get a little, I have a hard time with that. So if the county nurse or whoever is going to say, no, you can't work, but yet we're not going to pay them, that's where I have a problem. And we've done that in the past. So the question is what are we going to do to the people that we already took their benefit time from? Is this going to fix that or correct that we force them to take their benefit time, or they just lost their benefit time and that's what it is?
Mr. Chair, if I can answer to that? Supervisor Cooey, that would be dependent on the effective date that we would put it into place. Again, the language put forward would be a future date of saying it would go into effect. I believe I got the language on here of the next first pay day, or the next, what is it, the beginning of the next pay period following adoption. There's potential to go back to previous dates to try to do that. We would have to do reimbursements to try to figure that out, but there is a possibility to go back and retroactive.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to have to leave the meeting because it's almost 2 o'clock here. So Supervisor Cooey, I'm going to hand the chair over to you. And this is the last item. It's item number 4 until adjournment, which is item number 11. So.
I'm done. I guess I'm done speaking. Whoever.
Okay, it's Linda. I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
I totally agree with you, Mark. I don't understand why we're writing this the way we are. I mean, is that just to your discretion, Clint? Or it doesn't seem fair.
No, I would not use the word fair to describe it. Again, it's when the Families First Act came out, it allowed local governments to allow people to be exempted from it. And again, the mindset is to preserve essential functions. It has been intimidating to have folks that potentially are entitled to up to 12 weeks to try to take care of folks or kids that are out of school or daycare, and try to maintain operations such as nursing home, as law enforcement is patrol again. So that's the mindset that I approached in taking these exempted positions to you for adoption. It is not fair. It is not in any way, shape, or form fair. The motion brought before you today to allow for an additional discretionary pay is still not fair. The Fair Act would be to allow for no exemption to the policy, but again, then we run the risk operationally of not being able to staff or maintain some of the critical functions that we have, because it's going to be an entitlement then that we're going to lose discretionary control to try to encourage and motivate folks to come back and fulfill these essential duties. And I don't know how else to say it than that.
Mr. Chair.
Hey, go ahead, Mr. Brewer.
I would love to know if there are any department heads in attendance right now who could comment to this, Tom or Roger or Sheriff Bindle in particular.
Chairman Cooey, Tom Russell from Pine Valley, if you'd allow us a minute or two.
Yes, please speak.
We currently have 8 staff out with COVID. It's hard enough, difficult enough for staffing to do without them for 2 weeks. But if you extend and open all these benefits up to everybody, and to think then that we could potentially have someone who has issues with school being shut down or their child care provider not available, that they could have up to 12 weeks of getting some payment to be at home would make staffing almost impossible. I agree with everything Clint has said in regards to this not being totally fair in the end. It's difficult to make it fair when you're providing services where you can't go without certain people. That's why they're called essential. We agree with the amendment as presented. We just don't agree with the effective date. We believe it needs to go retroactive to September 16th. And we at Pine Valley, who have a number of employees to be concerned about, we've prepared for this possibility, so we don't see that as a challenge to us to go retro with this. It's just a carve out. We know it's not going to open up all the benefits to everybody, but we think that the most serious problem a person could have as an employee would be if they get COVID themselves. And so for the county to give them this benefit, granted, we're not doing, Linda, everything else, but at least we're doing this benefit. We think, and our department heads up here talked about this, we think that would go a long way with addressing the inequities. And I'll shut up and take questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Tom?
Yes, Tom, would it be administratively impossible to do it retroactively, or?
No, no. As I said, we've been anticipating this probability, and so it would not be difficult for us.
Do we have Roger or Sheriff Bendel on?
I'm here, Marty. I do agree with giving them the 2 weeks, just the 2 weeks. But now I have a little issue with the $500 that was paid to the essential staff and not the non-essential. That is going to cause me some hardship among the employees of who deems to get the $500 and who does not.
I can see that.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Tom, in your department, if you're going to have any issues.
With all respect to Roger, I think this is a difficult enough issue. I agree with you. That's a potential issue. I'd rather we keep the discussion to the matter at hand and deal with that down the road. No matter how we dice this, there's inequities. Offering this one possibility would be this carve out as presented by Clint makes sense and would go a long ways towards helping some of those inequities not be so bad.
Does anyone else have anything?
Mr. Chair, this is Tracy Thorson. I just want to confirm that, I would agree with what Director Rislow has said about just we're only impacted by, I think they're only our public health are the ones who are identified as being exempt. But if we lost any one of those nurses for 12 weeks, we would be devastated in our ability to respond to the pandemic.
All right, thank you. I guess, board members, where are we at with this, and do I have a motion to go forward?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair.
I would like to make a motion to go ahead with the recommendation from the administration, but make it retroactive.
Would,
Retroactive to when?
September 16th, I believe Tom said.
That is correct.
How does that affect you, Roger?
I want to say I had 4 or 5 individuals that would receive back pay for those.
September 16th far enough back?
That's when the change was put into effect per the court case.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Seats.
I second that motion if no one else has, and I would like to offer this point of discussion, that if there is an issue, as Roger suggested, with some problem with $500 here and there, those problems I think perhaps we could deal with at a later time in terms of providing more equity in those compensatory matters. But I think that we should not let the perfect be the enemy of the good here. This is a good start. No program or project or plan is not worthy of some modification at a later time if found to be reasonable and necessary. So I second the motion.
All right, so we got Supervisor Brewer with the motion and Supervisor Seep with the second. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone opposed? No one opposed, motion carries. All right, good conversation on that. Now we need to set up the next meeting.
Could I speak, Mr. Sheriff?
Sure, go right ahead.
I've been fighting to get this phone to work here, and I couldn't get in before you made your vote. I would like to reiterate what Roger said. The people that were picked as essential, it's creating a division amongst us, that some got it, some didn't. I wish that everybody would have looked at the department heads to come across and say, listen, I feel these people are essential, not what the decision was made for us. So I reiterate what Roger is saying. We are looking at a division where somebody got paid, somebody didn't, with the $500.
But if you remember correctly, the people that weren't deemed essential, if something happened to them, they did get paid to stay home. Correct?
But that's what I'm saying, Mark. If one of these people would have gotten sick, they were going home, the department wouldn't have run.
Understood, but if they did go home sick, they didn't get paid either. That's the difference.
Correct,
right?
But the road deputies, because they're out on the road, and the jailers, because they're in the jail, I have staff in my office. If they weren't here, this department would not run. So
they don't ever
when
take
you say
any
that there
time
was
off.
non-essential, I'm sitting here and I'm saying, wait a minute, I never got any say in it.
I understand your point. I get what you're saying. The fact of the matter is that at the end of the day, it comes down to what has to happen every day. So do you have to have jail staff in your case, and do you have to have road deputies?
Yes.
And that's how that was, I'm guessing that's how that was deemed essential. Now, I'm not saying other people's jobs aren't essential. That's not the point I'm trying to make. But what I'm saying is what do you absolutely bare minimum have to function? And that's the way you have to look at it, because that's what was deemed, in my opinion, that's what was deemed essential. Bare bones, everything else is stopped. What do you have to have? And that's where this has come up from.
I understand you already made the vote, Mark. I couldn't get my phone unmuted. I was sitting here screaming into it, trying to get a message to you.
I understand that, but understand the point I guess I'm making is these people were deemed essential 5 months ago, 6 months ago, and nobody said anything about it until now. I mean, the only reason I brought it up 3 meetings ago is because the people that were essential didn't get any payment if they got sick or if they got told to stay home because they were essential. If they were non-essential, then they got all these other 2 weeks worth of pay, or they could take 2/3 or whatever the case may be. That was the reason why I brought this up 2 months ago, because I didn't feel it was fair that I'm requiring you to work, but if you get sick, then I'm requiring you to take your time and not get paid, and the person who I'm not requiring, isn't deemed essential, and they get sick, they get paid.
Exactly.
That's the problem I have with it. So now what we're saying is we're paying the people, and now we're mad because we're paying them because the other people don't get paid because they weren't deemed essential.
Correct.
I have to
But
agree with
doing...
Mr. Seep. I have to agree with Mr. Seep is we're trying to do the best we can. I understand people get upset because this person got a bonus and they're looking at it as this is a bonus. They got a bonus because they're essential and I'm not essential, but this is what we decided was essential and wasn't essential. It doesn't really, it isn't your, I mean, it isn't, you didn't decide it, and you go back to your department and you say, well, guys, you know, this is what was decided, this is the rules we got to follow, and I understand that it's not fair, but it isn't fair that if you got sick and you got paid, and if these guys got sick, they got nothing, and actually had to use their vacation time or their sick leave to get paid. I guess that's how I differentiate it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I might respond, Sheriff, you unfortunately were not able to connect with us, but we did have the suggestion of the possibility of, we said that all plans can be modified. At least I said that. And whether others agreed or not, I don't know. But what I'm saying is that down the line here, putting this plan in place today, down the line, there's nothing that said that we cannot devise some sort of a compensation that does not jeopardize staffing for these other people. I think that can be dealt with as an amendment or as a separate matter. But it's too complicated, too complex, and too cumbersome to put this in this package, I think. Mr. Cooey, thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Cooey.
Like I said, it's
Mr.
not
Cooey,
ideal, guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to remind folks, as Clint told us, this all ends December 31st, pending further legislative action. And that's where some of these definitions and stuff came from, was from the legislation. It wasn't even necessarily our ideas. So, you know, keep that in mind as well. And given our current climate, is it likely that legislators in Washington or even in the state perhaps will do something, you know, towards the end of the year to not let this just expire? It would seem to me that would be logical, but it gets problematic when you start trying to ascribe logic to legislative action. So,
Very intelligent comment, Mr. Turk, as usual.
All right. Any more discussion? Sheriff Bendel, I know it may not be what you wanted to hear, and I understand your department could, and I understand Roger's point too. But at the end of the day, it was trying to give the people that didn't have the opportunity to get anything something. And I guess a lot of times going forward to try to do the right thing, sometimes it upset several other people because they felt that they didn't get the right thing. So if you never got sick and you never got to use any of the benefit, then you got the, I guess some people would feel they got the lesser of the short end of the stick, but on the same token, they never got sick and they were able to perform their job duties. And I think that should be grateful for that too. So not everybody would agree with me, but that's what I would say. Any other comments, questions? All right, so next meeting, I think it was December 1st at 1 o'clock. Most likely we will be virtual, I would assume.
Yeah, I'll plan on virtual right now. If by chance we see significant drop in our numbers and it looks like it may be safe, or if such items come up where it feels like it's appropriate to meet in person, we do have discretionary language from the chair that allows them to pick the place. So if we just adjourn to a time of December 1st at 1 p.m., we can adjust as we need to.
Sounds good. So can I get a motion to adjourn until December 1st at 1 p.m.?
So moved.
Jenna seconds.
Awesome. So there we go. We got a first and second. All in favor?
Marty,
signify
did
by
you
saying
look at
aye.
the agenda?
Aye.
aye.
All right.
Yes.
Meeting
I'll call
is
you.
adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to Clint, our administrator, for all his hard work here.
Everyone stay safe.
Is it you touching that?